I'm First Sergeant Floyd, Missouri National Guard.
I'm Sergeant Christia, Missouri National Guard.
And what we're doing here today is just sort of kicking it around, discussing points of leadership, tenets of leadership, challenges that leaders face in the military. And we're just going to sort of flesh out those points, talk about some case studies, how you would handle certain things, and it's going to be pretty informal. So we're going to get started and start talking about these points.
I like it. Okay, let's talk about the first thing. When all people are, or when more than one person's in the room, you can guarantee conflict. And the military is no different. So how do we as leaders, as NCOs, approach conflict? You as a first sergeant, what's your perspective on conflict?
You mean conflict has already occurred, or you're just trying to head it off?
Either. I'll let you go.
If I'm trying to head off conflict, I think the main point is to set expectations at the beginning. You know, if you're going to have a lot of people in a room or more than one person in a room, there's a reason for that. Mm-hmm. So since you're the one calling the meeting, then you set out the agenda and what we're here for, so that everybody knows the reason why they're here and that there's a point to be made or an objective to be reached.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I agree. I think conflict is an opportunity for growth. So I'm not suggesting that we should seek conflict, but not everybody's going to get along, not everybody's going to agree with each other, and not everybody's going to want to go in the direction that the decision makers are deciding to go. However, it's an opportunity to develop better plans, it's an opportunity to develop better courses of action, and to engage in the unit and grow stronger in the esprit de corps and finding the best solution. So there's a right method to handle that, and I think we're going to talk about that in a second, how you should handle conflict, but I think all leaders should always approach conflict as an opportunity. Don't necessarily shy away from it, but see it as a method of growth.
Well, and conflict, as long as it's not violent or abusive conflict,
right.
Disagreement type conflict, that's where you're just getting input from different resources so you can make the best decision possible. It's okay if A disagrees with B, mm-hmm. You're taking both of those viewpoints into account and then making a decision, and then we live with the decision that we make.
Right. Could you give us an example of a conflict you had to manage in the past and how you went about it as a senior NCO?
Well, this is sort of a long story, but I was in charge of a instructional group, and I was an E5 and I had an E6 as part of my team. So I had one of my team who outranked me, although he was just there to be an instructional resource under my supervision. This is an experienced soldier, several deployments, not a babe in the woods at all, so very, very mature in soldier experience. And what happened was, during the course of the instruction, this E6 had started to fraternize and flirt with the students. I didn't know that was happening. Well, come to find out, at the end of the instructional period, the day before the test, the instructional staff goes out on a morale dinner. Just the instructional staff goes somewhere, have dinner, bonding type thing. I didn't know that this E6 had invited the students to where we were going until we were well into the event, and this E6 had had some things to drink, so he was no longer sober, and the students walked in. And they sat down at the table. And so I'm in this situation where I now have this situation where I know that we shouldn't be fraternizing, but I also have an E6 who invited these people who is now intoxicated, and I have to deal with that person to get these students out of the situation. Right. So I knew that I couldn't stay in the situation, that I couldn't continue to, condone in person what was happening here. But I also knew I felt that if I tried to confront this E6 on this situation, that it would end badly. Mm-hmm. So I told one of the other cadre that was there to be responsible for getting the other people home. There was males and females, and one of the female cadre took charge of getting the female soldiers home. So later on in the evening, I got a call. They were at the next place. They were at a bar, and the E6 now is very intoxicated. So I drive to the bar, find the E6 there. He's intoxicated. He's been starting trouble. So I just had to pull him aside and convince him to leave with me immediately. And that's what happened. and the females got back to their place okay, and the males got back to their place okay because both the drivers were DDs and they were not drinking. That's how I handled it. There's many ways to handle a situation like that, but the reason why I handled it that way was I took into account the situation as it existed when I became aware of it, and the intoxication level of the people I was dealing with. Because I felt that if I tried to knife hand it and mandate what I wanted to happen, I knew from that E6 that it wasn't going to end well, and it would be a worse situation than what I have right now. So it still wasn't an ideal situation, but that's how I handled it.
Yeah.
And I give this case point to other soldiers just so they can think about how they would handle it.
Yeah. I don't know how, that's hard to deal with, especially if you are a lower ranking individual in a group. How do you go about handling that conflict? There's kind of a point where you have default aggression but not carelessness. So you kind of took it a point to be aggressive in the situation, but you weren't careless, and you had a little bit of emotional intelligence to say, well, probably shouldn't be knife handing this guy, but you still kind of took it upon yourself to make it happen, which is pretty impressive.
Well, the other point is, and I can understand this point, that I should have stayed there. I should have been there to manage the situation. I should have remained with them throughout. At the time, I just didn't feel like that I could do that I would be condoning that situation if I stayed with it, and that I would be sucked into the situation.
Right.
So, was I right? Was I wrong? Maybe. Everybody's going to handle it differently. That's how I handled it. But when you put that situation in front of other soldiers and leaders, then they can think about, okay, I would have handled it this way. So maybe I was wrong, but
yeah, I don't know.
Maybe I wasn't.
Maybe we should ask the question. Maybe we should ask them how they would handle it.
It's a good teaching point.
Yeah, maybe post a comment on this link and see what you guys would do in that situation. You have a higher ranking individual who's getting in trouble. What do you do? How do you manage that situation?
Well, the kicker is the intoxication.
And they're
the person is no
intoxicated.
longer rational and reasonable the way you think that they would be. I mean, this guy, well, I had formed an impression of this person over the last several days, and I didn't want to light that fuse.
Right. Maybe, because intoxication might not be a part of the equation for other people. Maybe they're never rational.
Good point.
Ever. So good. Let us know. See what you guys think. Come up with in your comments below.